Pickleball Diaries presents Cling on the Court with your host, Lily Brown. Let's go!
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Cling on the Court. Let's cracking some pickleball code again. We cannot keep cracking the court. Okay, so thank you. And yes, please follow us on YouTube channel and all the podcast, the subscription platforms such as Spotify or whatever you have. Just follow us and like us. Okay, Jeff, thank you. I'm very excited to continue the topic as last week, and let's continue to talk about the singles pattern. I give the floor to you.
Yeah, looking forward to delving into a couple of more common patterns here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'll share my screen here.
Okay.
And one moment. Okay, so again, hopefully you're watching and listening on YouTube so you can get the visual benefit of these visual diagrams here. So starting where we left off last episode is the next pattern is attacking the backhand when receiving a short ball and then volleying to the open space. So this is sort of the idea of two players are at the baseline, and when you get a short ball, looking to use your strength or your forehand when you get a short ball that lands around the middle of the court, and then using your strength to the opponent's weakness, which we're just going to assume for this pattern is the backhand. So in this drill or this pattern, player B feeds a short ball to player A. Player A moves forward to hit an approach shot or an attacking shot to the backhand of player B. Player B then can attempt a passing shot of any sort, and player A will look to hit their volley, which is their second shot, to the open court of player B. So it's approach to the backhand, volley to the open court. And again, this is a very what we call sort of like a mostly closed pattern. So we're just determining that the feed has to be up the middle, and player A is looking to take that ball early, hit aggressively with an approach shot to the backhand of player B. They'll come into the non-volley zone behind that approach shot and then look to volley to open space. Okay, and this keeps player B on the run. So two things here. When we're talking about hitting to the weakness, we're assuming the weakness is the backhand, and we're attacking the backhand because as we get to the non-volley zone, we're hoping that by attacking the backhand, we can get a weaker reply from player B. So we get a weaker passing shot, maybe even an unforced error. And if we get a weaker passing shot or even a weaker drop attempt from player B, we can then hit our second ball to the open court and hopefully stretch player B or even hit a winner. And again, it's hit to the weakness to create an opportunity and then to take that opportunity by hitting to the open space. So very simple pattern. And you can do this as a 4-shot pattern. So it's feed up the middle. Player A hits an approach shot. That's shot number 1. Player B attempts a pass. That's shot number 2. And then player A is going to try to hit a volley to the open court, which is their second shot. Player B can choose whether to chase that down and attempt to hit another passing shot, but that's up to the two players drilling whether they want to train it that way. You could also play the point out after that volley. So you play 4 cooperative shots or sort of 4 predetermined shots, and then the point's wide open from there. So again, common sort of tactic or pattern is utilize your strength when attacking a short ball and drive it to the player's weakness in the hopes that you get a weak reply that allows you to hit an aggressive second ball to the open space. Any questions there, Lily, related to that?
No, it's really, really good. So, especially with when you're talking about with this drill, you said it's going to feed to the short ball.
Mhm.
So should the play A more close to the baseline or like more behind?
It depends. So there's different ways. So you could just recover behind the baseline and pretend that you don't know the short ball is coming so that you have to have a more realistic movement to the short ball. But there could be a situation where, often we see that our opponent is in trouble before they hit a short ball. So both players are at the baseline, but maybe you hit a really good drive from the baseline and you see that your opponent is stretched and defensive. and you anticipate that a short ball is likely, then you might position yourself on the baseline in preparation for the short ball so that it's easier to move forward. So there's always nuance to these things, but I would suggest just starting behind the baseline and then have player B feed that short ball, and player A can move forward from that starting position behind the baseline.
Yeah, so because this leads to another question I have. When you know you hit a very good serve, but you know you still have to wait for the bounce. But you
Yes.
see you hit a good serve, you see your opponent is like kind of stretched a bit. Should you move a bit closer to the baseline?
100%. Yeah. And this would be you can apply this pattern in different ways. So it could be, we could imagine that maybe player A in this diagram, maybe player A hit a really aggressive serve and they're expecting a weak return. So they could recover a little bit closer to the baseline. But yes, after an aggressive serve, if you're a great server, and especially if you're playing someone who returns weak, you should recover a little closer to the baseline because chances are you've already seen that you're getting short returns. And so you should just shorten the distance to the next shot by recovering on the baseline instead of behind the baseline. And this is almost like that's almost the same pattern. We're just removing the serve from this pattern, but you could absolutely start with that where you have player A hits an aggressive serve wherever they want, and they look to take the next ball to the backhand of the returner. But yeah, so that's a good question. And again, that's where knowing your strengths, knowing your opponent's weaknesses or their tendencies, or if you've hit a bunch of aggressive serves and the returner's constantly returning short, then you want to serve and recover closer to the baseline so you have an easier time moving forward to the short ball.
Yeah, because the last thing you want, you hit a great serve and your opponent hit a drop return and you couldn't get it.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. And that starts to delve into anticipation. Like sometimes you can really anticipate when the short ball is coming because you see that your opponent's in trouble, like their paddle face is open, they're fully stretched and reaching, they're not in good position to execute the shot. So you can anticipate a weak ball is coming your way and then adjust your positioning accordingly so that you have an easier time attacking that weak ball.
Yeah, so sorry.
No
Another
problem.
question. Um, and I find that some players they carry the habit as from the double. So when they counter a hard serve, they short hop the return.
Yes. Yeah.
So with that, so with that kind of short hop, it it, it doesn't return strong, but it does go deep. So as the server, how do you counter, like when you know your opponent is very good at these short hop returns for your hard serve, how do
Mhm.
you counter that?
Well, if you know that your opponent is good at returning deep, so I think that's what you said is even when you serve aggressively, they're able to play the ball in the rise or even the short hop and they still return deep. You as the server need to anticipate that. If they've proven it to you and you've recognized it, then you should recover deeper behind the baseline for your third shot. So again, that comes down to anticipation. You're reading that your opponent's good at returning deep, so you need to recover in a deeper court position to be in a good position for your third shot. But if you want to try and break the returner down to prevent them from being able to play the short hop with success, you might want to change the rhythm. So it's really difficult to play the ball in the short hop if you hit the ball with a heavy arcing trajectory as the server. You could hit with more height and spin to try and get the ball to jump off the court. That can make it harder to time off the short hop. Or when you're playing someone who's really good at playing the ball early, you should focus on precision and trying to make them move left to right because it's easier to play the ball off the short hop when the ball's coming right at you. But if you have to take a few steps to the side in either direction and then play the ball in the short hop, it's much harder to execute as the returner. So as the server, you should start focusing more on precision from left to right versus depth or speed straight at the returner. So there's the serve itself. You need to change the rhythm or focus on precision against a good returner. And then also, if they're just good at returning aggressively and deep, you also need to adjust your court positioning after the serve and recover in a deeper position to have more time to set up to receive that deep return.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, answer to my question.
All right. Okay. So the next pattern, and this is the last pattern we're going to go over, is what's fairly common is you'll experience that your opponent tries to pressure your backhand. So a lot of times people, if they're experienced singles players, they will try to attack your backhand. And for most of us, our backhand's generally the weaker side. It's not true in all cases, obviously. But learning how to defend on your backhand can be a really useful tactic. So this is similar to the last drill, but in this case, player B feeds a short ball to player A. Player A hits an attacking approach shot to player B's backhand. So it's the same thing that we just did, except instead of player B attempting a passing shot, player B is going to work on their ability to neutralize player A and to neutralize that attacking shot on their backhand by sending a cross-court backhand drop. Okay. And so when you're being attacked and your opponent's approaching the net, you always have the option of responding either with a passing shot or a drop, or a third option could actually be a lob. You could choose to lob your opponent. But there might be situations where hitting a really good passing shot is really difficult. So if you're fully stretched as player B, so your opponent hits an aggressive drive to your backhand and you just can't get set up in good position to hit a drive, you might be fully stretched and it might actually be smarter to hit a drop. Now, hitting a drop is really tough because you're taking an aggressive ball that's coming with speed and trying to hit a soft, precise shot. So it's not easy. However, the one benefit of hitting a drop is that it gives you more time to recover. So sometimes if you get attacked on your backhand and your opponent's approaching the net, you might hit a good drive, but if that drive isn't successful, if it goes right to the net player just volleys it to the open space and you have no time to recover. So in this case, player B moves over to receive this attacking shot on their backhand. If they can try to master the ability to hit a cross-court drop, it'll buy them some time to recover, and hopefully they can neutralize player A by hitting a soft drop that forces player A to hit from below the net, which limits player A's ability to be aggressive on the next shot. Okay, so again, when you're receiving an attack and your opponent's coming to the net, you have a choice. You can try to hit a passing shot, like an aggressive pass with speed or with like speed and top spin. But if you're not comfortable and you don't have that ability or you're really stretched, you might actually elect to hit a drop where it buys you some recovery time. And also if you do it well, it stays low and forces player A or forces the net player to hit up on the ball or hit soft, which then makes your next shot a little easier. And then the other scenario could just be maybe you're playing someone who handles speed really well. So they volley really well when you drive the ball. Maybe changing to a drop instead of a driving pass is a more sensible shot or a smarter shot that's more effective at neutralizing the net player.
Yeah, so follow this pattern. I really like the drop shot idea. And so when you know you hit a good drop shot, where as the B player, where are you supposed to be? Are you getting closer to the kitchen? Where the core position should you?
So there's the two elements to court positioning. There's your up and back positioning and your left to right positioning. So let's talk about up and back positioning first. If you hit a successful drop, that means the net player receiving that successful drop. And by successful, it means that the ball stays low and forces the net player to have to hit up on the ball to get it over the net. So if we're anticipating that we're forcing the aggressive player at the net to hit soft, we should then recover in a more forward position because we're anticipating the net player is going to hit a drop in response to our drop, or they're going to hit a dink in response to our drop. And often this is the start of what we call a cat and mouse battle. Okay. So player B should recover in a forward position on a successful drop. Now, if player B hits an unsuccessful drop, so the drop is high over the net and the net player can attack it, player B needs to recover in a deeper position to give themselves time to react to an aggressive volley from the net player. So that's the up and back positioning. Now, when we're talking about left to right positioning, let's say that's an effective cross-court drop over here. Player B needs to move forward, as we already mentioned, but then they need to be probably somewhere around the middle because they need to bisect the potential angles from the net player. So player A, if they're over here where we see the number 2, they can either dink the ball down the line or they can dink the ball cross court. So player B needs to move up and move up towards the middle of the court so that they can get to the down the line dink or they can get to the cross court dink. And when player B recovers forward, they can cut off that cross court dink angle a lot better than if they stay back. So the challenge is if player B does stay back after an effective drop, when they should have moved forward, they can now get easily exposed by a cross court dink from player A. So this is why up and back court positioning after a successful drop is critical. Player B needs to move up and move up towards the middle so they can get to either a down the line dink or a cross court dink from player A. If player B stays back after that a successful drop, they're really going to be exposed by a potential angle from player A. So yeah, again, this is where court positioning fundamentals and understanding court positioning is super critical. Everyone should understand those concepts so that they can maximize their chances of being in good position after they hit the drop.
Yeah, because you're only one, right? Like I find it's more crucial in terms of anticipation in the singles.
Mhm.
Because if you have a slight slow round and you're not able to cover the next shot. So, and then I don't know if you is that the last slice? I wonder if you
It
prepare
is.
for when we should decide we can approach to the kitchen and then the whole volley, the skill of the volley we should develop.
Yeah, so actually, what you could do, so you could take this pattern, this exact pattern, and instead of player B feeding a short ball, player B could feed a deep ball or a short ball. So now player A has a decision to make. Do they hit a ground stroke and stay back when they receive a deep feed from player B? Or if player B feeds a short ball, they need to recognize it and move forward. So you can add a decision-making element, and that would cover exactly what you just mentioned. So working on your perception skills of when you get a short ball versus a deep ball and being decisive about when to stay back or when to approach the net by hitting an attacking shot and moving forward. So again, these single patterns, we call them patterns for a reason. They're sort of preset. But all of these patterns, as you get more advanced, they should be opened up and you should add decision making because that makes them more realistic. And I've talked a lot about that on previous podcasts where when you first learn a skill, it's important to it's easier to close it off and eliminate decision making so that you can just master that single tactic or single skill in a sort of in a vacuum. So there's no decision making and you can build your confidence with that shot. But then you need to add some element of decision making to see if you can actually execute that shot when you're not certain that you're actually receiving that exact ball. And that tests your ability to perceive the ball and then decide on making the right shot selection and then executing that shot. Um, and then after that, you should actually make sure you put these into game situations. So make them even more realistic by opening them up and playing the game. So an example of this pattern, you could actually just say player B is going to feed a short ball or a deep ball. Player A can hit wherever they want, and then you play the point out. So that works on player A's ability to recognize a short ball quickly so that they can move forward and attack it. Okay. But by allowing player B to also send deep feeds, player A now has to make a decision of when to just hit a ground stroke and stay back or when they should move forward.
Yeah. So, and also, one shot you were talking about is the lob in the
Mhm.
singles.
Yeah.
I find that the lob in the singles is often being kind of overlooked. And so, in terms of the lob in singles, when should we hit the lob?
Yeah.
And
So
what will be effective lob? And then also the other side, like should like how do you do effective counter? Like if you like, is it better to smash? And some people have a weak smash, or should you go back to the baseline and drop on drive? like
Yeah.
mind the event.
So
Yeah.
starting with the person who's doing the lob, um, generally you should lob in two scenarios. Well, you should. So if your opponent, we're talking about if the opponent's at the net and you're at the baseline.
Yeah.
So if your opponent's at the net and you're at the baseline and your opponent is a really poor mover, or you've already witnessed and observed that they don't have a good smash. So maybe they don't have a good smash because they don't move backwards well, or maybe it's a combination of they don't move well and they just have a poor overhead, like they just don't have a good overhead, then lobbing absolutely would be really smart. So basically, you're exploiting a weakness. So regardless of what shot you receive, if they're at the net and they have a poor overhead, lob all day long. Okay. And then the other situation,
People are gonna hate us.
yeah, no, I mean, this game is about this game's about being effective, right? So it's not, it's like what if you're playing and your goal is to perform and try to win matches, you should be doing whatever shots your opponent doesn't like if you have the ability to do those shots. So the other scenario is your opponent's at the net and maybe they have an okay overhead. Maybe their volleys are also like sort of solid and their overhead solid. Usually, as a rule of thumb, if you set up well for the ball, so you're balanced and in position, maybe it's a little bit smarter or easier to execute a good driving passing shot because you're balanced and the ball you received isn't too challenging. You should probably drive. It's just a little bit easier potentially. But as the baseliner and your opponent's at net, if they put you on the defense and you're really stretched, so you're scrambling and you're not in good position to execute the shot, in that case, as a rule of thumb, you should lob. So generally, if you're very defensive and your opponent's at net, lobbing is a great option because it's hard to hit a good passing shot when you're off balance and stretched. It's hard to hit a really good drop if you're totally stretched and off balanced or rushed. So lobbing is a low risk shot because you're hitting it high and slow and you've got so much court to hit to. So it's a low risk shot that can be really effective. So it also buys you time to get back. So if you're stretched and really defensive, lobbing the ball up high gives you time to recover back towards the middle. So that's the baseliners, sort of some criteria for when to lob versus when to drive. And then if you're the net player, you should, as a rule of thumb, if you get lobbed, you should always attempt to take the ball out of the air, and try to smash or even hit a high volley. Because if you let the ball bounce, often you're running backwards and the ball is traveling away from you towards the back of the court. It's very hard to get in position on a good lob as you're chasing it off the bounce and then to respond with an effective shot. So at every opportunity, you should do your best to take the ball in the air and then smash it or hit an aggressive high volley, to open space or to the weakness of your opponent. But it's generally, if we're talking about receiving a decent lob, it means the lob's going up and over you and going to travel to the back of your court. So if you let it bounce, you might not be in good position to respond with any sort of effective shot. You'll probably be even more defensive. So you should always try to take the ball out of the air and take away time and hit to open space.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing. Thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah, so is that like your like the patterns you recommend we can start with?
Yeah, those are good starting points. So basically, I selected these 5 patterns from the last episode and and this episode. Tried to pick one serving pattern, one returning pattern, and then one baseline to baseline rally pattern, which was the X pattern, and then one attacking and defending pattern. So like when you're training skills, when you're talking about tactics, it's important that you train the most frequent game situations. Game situations are basically you're serving. That's a situation. You're the server. You're the returner. So those are frequently occurring situations you should train. Then there's often where you're baseline to baseline. So you're in a baseline to baseline rally. That's pretty frequently occurring in singles. And then it's also frequent that you approach the net. So you need to develop attacking skills. And then it's also frequent that you're being attacked. So you need to work on your defensive skills. So we usually want to train in a way where we train common situations, or another way to look at it is we want to train the different phases of play. And by phases of play is just referring to offense, defense, or neutral. So like often when we're in a baseline to baseline rally, it's not necessarily clear who's on the offense or defense. It's sort of neutral. Both players are sending deep balls to one another. So that's what we call like the neutral phase of play. But if you're getting a short ball and you have the a chance to attack a weak short ball, you're on the offense. So you should train your offensive skills, which are like approach shots, volleys, overheads. And you should also train your defensive skills. So when someone approaches and attacks against you, you should train your ability to receive those attacks and get in position and hit either passing shots, drop defensive drops, or train your ability to lob the person who's attacking you. So those are ways you should think about training in general. That could apply to doubles as well, is train common situations, but also train being on the defense, being on the offense, and building the point from neutral. Yeah.
So I'm glad you mentioned the doubles. And I think we also talked about there's so many skills and it's transferable, especially I think singles help us to improve our creativity of doubles game. You see the court differently.
Yeah.
And do you mind to highlight some of the tips you talked about, the patterns of the skills we talked about in this one and the previous episode can be transferable to the doubles game?
Yeah, so the first, like, because the first obvious one is in singles, the serve and return is just so important because if you don't serve well, you can get exposed because the returner can really make you run with an aggressive return. So the serve is so critical. So generally, if you practice singles, you'll learn to generally develop an aggressive serve, so a more aggressive serve in terms of speed and depth. And then usually you'll also develop an ability to focus on precision. So the ability to place your serve. Because again, if you don't place your serve well, or it's not effective because it's not fast enough or deep enough, you can really pay the price in singles. So it usually people who play more singles, usually they evolve their serve and develop more ability on their serve in terms of precision, speed, and depth. Okay, so that's number one. And then return of serve, it's the same thing. When you're playing singles, if you don't return well and you don't challenge the server with your return, they're just going to rip a passing shot by you on the next ball because they have so much space when you're playing singles. So you learn to return with more purpose, and usually you develop more aggressive aggressive returns. And generally, you will probably develop more well-placed, precise returns. And in an ideal world, we return aggressively. That's with deep returns that are fast, but also with precision. And so those two things are critical in singles, and they really lead to improving your doubles serve and your doubles returns. I personally, from what I see, I like when I'm coaching and watching players of all levels, but particularly around the intermediate level, is you can tell that doubles players don't stress enough the importance of effective serving and effective returning. Often it just looks like someone's trying to get the serve in, get the return in, and get the point started. But there's so much advantage to be gained as the server or the returner, even in doubles. And if you practice singles a lot, you'll develop those skills and gain an advantage in those areas. So that would be the first one. The second one that's quite obvious is like your ability to drive the ball. So developing really good third shot drives. When you're playing singles, you're more likely to drive your third shot because you have open space to hit to. And if you can drive the ball to that open space before the returner has a chance to get into position, it can really benefit you. So generally, singles players will develop really exceptional drives. So they'll develop more precision on their drives, and they'll also develop the ability to drive the ball low over the net, which is also critical in doubles. So making sure your drives stay low to prevent attacks, but also create pop-ups. And then the third thing that's super important, but also obvious is when you play singles, it's mentally and physically demanding because you have to cover so much court. So generally your movement skills will improve dramatically. And that really translates well into doubles because even though doubles has a little less court to cover for each player, your ability to move powerfully, so your first step being super powerful, whether it's getting behind a dink, or reacting quickly to a volley when you're at the non-volley zone in doubles, your movement skills will develop, and you'll usually develop better agility and better explosiveness from playing singles. And also your just general level of fitness will increase, which doubles is, doubles can be really grueling. Like the points are really long. They're longer than singles, generally speaking. But over the course of a day, when you're at a tournament playing doubles, it can be really fatiguing. And if you play a good amount of singles, it'll definitely increase your cardio or improve your cardio and increase your stamina and endurance, which can really pay dividends when you're playing a tournament and have a lot of doubles matches in one day. And then there's like the fourth sort of benefit is just when you start training singles, it's something different and you have different decisions to make, or maybe the factors that influence your decision making and shot selection are just different. So you become more adaptable. And often in singles, like it's very fast paced. So those adaptations and decision making have to occur very quickly. And sometimes there's more court to hit to. So you sometimes actually have more options in doubles than you do singles, or the options in doubles sometimes are more obvious, and in singles you have a more variety of options because there's more space to hit to. So it can challenge your decision making in a way that's beneficial to helping you become very perceptive at making decisions quickly and then executing the decision. So those would be sort of the main benefits. There's more to that, but I would say those are the four main benefits to training singles. And also, it's just fun. It's really fun.
It is. You
It's a
get to hit more
physical
balls.
challenge. Yeah, and it's just different. So sometimes it's a good way. Like if you've been playing doubles for a long time, and there's times where if you play a lot and train a lot, you can start to feel a bit stale. So just adding some singles in there is a good way to just change it up and keep things interesting.
Yeah, thank you. For sure, Jeff, you keep our this episode very interesting.
I hope so. I
And
hope so.
and I'm very appreciative of you contributing your time and knowledge, and my dear audience. And like I don't think there's any content out there has such an in-depth elaboration of singles pattern strategy so far. And I think we like this is really golden content. And I encourage you just you watch it and listen it again, and it definitely will help your games and regardless singles or doubles. So thank you so much, Jeff. And yeah, so I know you need to go and we will wrap up here. Yeah, so looking forward to the next content. And please, again, feel free to like and love, of course, love us and follow us on YouTube and then podcast platforms. And yeah, thank you. So see you guys next week, next
Yeah.
Wednesday.
Thanks, Lily, and thanks everyone for tuning in.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Take care.